Oh, they did a video on Breatharianism? Yeah. Oh, that's right. You guys told me about that. Yeah, so the Breatharians took her down. Took this video down. I totally forgot. So she beat him. Thanks, Resub Space Jesus.
This project is way more important than
Congrats,
a single
Jeff.
person.
That's great.
I'd say more important even than the human race.
In the spring of 2013, a channel titled Living on Light appeared on YouTube. Throughout its 3-month-long window of activity, a Seattle woman who went by the name Navina Shine regularly uploaded video diaries detailing the progress of an experiment she was conducting on herself.
My name is Navina Shine. I am both the founder of Living on Light, and I'm the subject in the first of our experiments.
Navina's goal was simple. She wished to prove that a human being could survive without eating.
So in this Living on
Thanks,
Light
Resub Red Rhino.
experiment, we want to demonstrate that it's possible for a human being to thrive without the need to ingest food into the physical body.
Instead, Navina would attempt to transition her body to use light as its only source of nutrition. A potential she believed everyone possessed if they could only find a way to unlock it. If Navina could prove such a lifestyle was possible, she predicted that people the world over would begin to adopt it, ushering in a foodless utopia with an end to hunger and a return to symbiosis with the natural world.
If it's actually true,
Well, it's not really a
humans do
return,
not
right?
have to eat food,
We've always eaten.
it'll change everything we know about ourselves and our planet. It will change the consciousness of humanity, and it will change everything we do in our world.
She's not a
Navina's
fucking
beliefs
plant.
about the
She's
human
not.
body
She's a
were
scam
nothing
artist.
new. By her own admission, Living on Light was largely based on the similar claims throughout the decades of people absorbing nourishment through air
sweet.
and
Well, thank you,
light,
Yag.
with
And I wish your
methods
friend
such
the
as
best.
chronic breathing and sun gazing cited as replacements for eating and drinking. Named after the claim that they need only breathe in the nutrients needed to survive, they call themselves the Breatharians.
I don't take any solid foods. I'm a breatharian.
Thanks for resub Venom in the Prime Bugsy. 5 new subs, Gina. Thank you, Gina. That's so stupid. That's what they said when Isaac Newton discovered gravity. Maybe they're just ahead of us.
And we can treat our planet entirely differently. We can treat our lives entirely differently when we know that we don't have to eat.
Navina was no
There's
doubt
really no
familiar with the
benefit to that, though,
controversial
really.
history of Breatharianism
Well, I guess kinda.
and the several so-called Breatharian gurus who
We
had
didn't have to
experienced
eat.
brief celebrity within the fringes of the modern New Age movement, later to have been exposed as lying about their lifestyle. Notable examples include Hira Ratan Manek, an Indian spiritualist who claimed to have not eaten for over a decade, instead staring into the
Thanks, the
sun
Prime
as a
Jersey.
method of maintaining vital functions, who was photographed at a restaurant in 2011. But Navina
What are
was
the
undeterred
odds?
by such reputational blemishes. For her,
I can't believe it.
living on
He was
light
eating
an answer to
the
a
whole
higher
time?
calling.
I see
What?
myself as being called to create this experiment and bring this vastly important information out into the
It was an
world.
oxygen
Many
restaurant.
interpreted Navina's cheerful,
Yeah, the restaurant was just very
sincere
rich in
disposition as
oxygen
impressionable
nutrients.
To the point of being delusional. Her experiment was met with overwhelming discouragement, with the comment sections filled with reminders of the obvious dangers of such an undertaking. But where most viewers of Living on Light saw a woman ensnared in esoteric mysticism, Navina saw herself as on the cusp of groundbreaking enlightenment, referring to Breatharianism as the greatest discovery the human race has ever made. So on
That's a
May
bold
3rd of
claim.
2013,
That is very
65-year-old
bold.
Navina Shine ate what she believed
We invented
might be
electricity
her
in
last
video
meal
games.
and began her process of living on light.
All the people who do this, who say they do this, and there's thousands of
You're
them
all
who
good,
say
Wayne.
this.
I also don't know about it, so I'm gonna have to look it
I
up.
can't think that all of them are lying. I mean, I can't think that.
Specifically, how long did you go without eating?
For me, on and off, well, pretty well just on water and tea for 2 years.
The name of Navina Shine's experiment was likely taken from a self-advertised spiritual guru who came to prominence in the late 1990s. An Australian woman named Ellen Grieve, more commonly known as Jasmuheen, published a book called Living on Light,
Jasmuheen.
which detailed a 21-day process of transitioning into a lifestyle which no longer required food. Instead, Jasmuheen claimed nourishment would be provided by prana, a Sanskrit word meaning breath or life force.
Where are they
Maybe
getting
tier 1
their
totally different
sustenance
milk.
from if they're not getting it from food?
Thank you, Gina.
Ki, the chi, the universal life force, or what we call prana, or if you're a religious person, you would say you are fed by the light of God, and obviously that's very hard to measure.
Jasmuheen stated to have acclimated to this lifestyle years ago, but still ate occasionally when the urge to experience a particular taste arose.
I've been free from the need to take any nourishment from food now for 11 years. That doesn't mean that I've had 11 years of taking nothing, but in that time, yeah, I've had a piece of chocolate or cappuccino or completely non-nourishing substance, because the path is about freedom.
Despite failing to rise to mainstream popularity during the quasi-mysticism trend of the 90s, a space occupied by New Age juggernauts like Deepak Chopra, she secured a loyal following reportedly numbering in the thousands.
Nice!
Her critics saw her as a dangerous charlatan whose teachings, if sincerely followed, would lead to inevitable tragedies. But her followers saw her as a vessel of
if I remember correctly, a few Breatharians
bringing about a shift in
have died
consciousness in time for the new millennium.
Unsurprisingly.
We're going through a huge shift in consciousness. It's obvious on the physical plane, and it's obvious within the physical bodies of mankind.
We could end hunger for good, Jasmuheen stated, if only we could reconnect to the alternate channels that offer freedom from physical, emotional...
Well, I don't know how many die from Breatharianism.
The first week
I think it's only a few, because most people give in to the urge to eat and live.
Detailed in her book, involved consuming nothing at all, solid or liquid. According to the blogs of people who have attempted this protocol, extreme fatigue, kidney pain, and the sensation of their mouths feeling glued shut were common complaints within a few days of this initial phase. But the book's assurance that this was merely the old spirit leaving the body, that these were signs of breaking through, kept them motivated to continue. The following 2 weeks allowed for the reintroduction of small amounts of water and diluted juice, but no food. It was recommended instead to channel pranic nourishment through meditation.
And simply saying, as the energy flows...
So basically, Jasmuheen was like a 4chan troll come to life, where you try and convince people to do some dumb shit, like creating chlorine gas by accident. This one was just live off breathing, no water or food.
Website, Jasmuheen would hold worldwide retreats, charging $1,500 for admittance. A small price, she argued, in exchange for no longer requiring caloric intake.
All my vitamins, all my mineral, everything that I need to maintain a
Kinda, Gina. And thanks to Prime
strong,
Gooch.
regenerative body, vital body, using body if you want that too, can come from prana, that this can be maintained from the divine force within.
The first of Jasmuheen's followers to die from living on light was in 1997.
The first.
Reports suggested Timo Degen, a 31-year-old German kindergarten teacher, had discovered her website, fell into a colorful rabbit hole of promised enlightenment, and slipped into a coma after attempting the 21-day protocol. The second fatality was Australian Lonnie Morris. Under the tutelage of a Breatharian couple who were later found guilty of manslaughter, Lonnie Morris began to experience speech loss, paralysis, and eventual death after little more than a week into Jasmuheen's living on light process. The black liquid she began vomiting days into the initiation,
I've heard of that.
The Breatharian couple assured her was a spiritual pollutant that needed to be expelled. Jasmuheen denied culpability. Perhaps they were not coming from a place of integrity and did not have the right motivation, she told the Sunday Times.
What an evil woman.
The death of her third
Holy shit.
A 49-year-old woman named Verity Lynn, that the Australian media began to push Jasmuheen to renounce living on light.
I don't mean to belittle your beliefs, and I'm sure they're sincerely held, but there is a woman who is dead in Scotland as a consequence of following your principles.
Along with a copy of Jasmuheen's book, authorities found Verity Lynn's diary. The last entry indicated Lynn didn't make it past the first week before collapsing of dehydration. She was discovered lying in a secluded moorland in northern Scotland by a passing fisherman.
Thanks, G. Millie. Glad you liked it.
Pointed out that in her book and on her website were disclaimers of personal accountability, including a checklist where aspirants were meant to self-assess their own eligibility based on physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual fitness. Those who didn't meet such criteria as feeling the presence of the Divine One within, were discouraged from embarking on living on light.
Is she still alive? Jazz Muheen? Let me see. Oh, let me pause real quick. Because I remember reading about some of these. Yeah, she is. Is she in jail? I don't want to spoil it, but I'd really like to read that she's in jail now for life. Oh my god. Not only is she not in jail, she is still killing people to this day. As of 2017, another death on her hands. It's fucking crazy that people like this don't get charged. Shame. Is the resub Maltharak and Mizu?
In an effort to quash Jazz Muheen's growing movement, the television program 60 Minutes issued her an opportunity to prove the legitimacy of her lifestyle, broadcast to Australian viewers nationwide. Jazz Muheen agreed to a 7-day demonstration in which she would take in no food or water, monitored by 24-hour surveillance, claiming it would be nothing more than a holiday.
You wouldn't watch me die, I'd come out smiling and laughing of your holiday.
And the controversial broadcast that followed would become a moment in breatharian history, referenced by both critics and advocates for decades to come.
Oh my god, did she actually pull it off?
Don't you think you should leave it to the audience to decide and the people who've bothered
No fucking way she pulled it off.
What I'm actually saying to decide?
What 60 Minutes was proposing was a dangerous experiment, but nothing beyond what Jazz Muheen advocated.
You could definitely do a week. No, human body shuts down after 4 days of no water, right?
Attempting it, Jazz Muheen's progress would be attended by a physician who regularly monitored her vitals throughout the week. As they met Jazz Muheen in her home to escort her to the hotel where the experiment was to take place, she was asked about her refrigerator stocked with food. She claimed most of it belonged to her partner, the carton of creamer she kept for tea.
Maybe the prime killer, resub Swarm.
The experiment itself was short-lived. After day 2 without food or
Maybe
water,
AJ.
the physician began warning Jazz Muheen of signs of dehydration and elevated blood pressure. Jazz Muheen claimed the city's air and its pollutants were preventing her from properly feeding from her chronic source.
Oh, I see.
So 60 Minutes relocated her to a more rural location. Her pulse continued to elevate, a sign of severe dehydration, as well as a drop in blood pressure and weight loss of over 13 pounds. Despite her deteriorating physical state, Jazz Muheen reported being in good spirits.
No fucking way.
You started on Monday night. How much water have you had?
None.
None whatsoever?
No, I'm not allowed.
How much food?
None, I'm not allowed.
How are you feeling?
I feel really good now I'm here.
After day 4, the physician estimated Jazz Muheen was experiencing around 11% dehydration. Her pulse
She was
had doubled
absolutely
since
getting
the
water.
beginning of the experiment, and she was at risk for kidney failure. It was recommended that 60 Minutes bring everything to a halt, to which they agreed.
It's too dangerous to continue?
Very much so. Too dangerous to continue.
Oh my god, just let her die on TV then.
If they encouraged her to continue.
The decision to end the demonstration was a divisive one. Many saw it as a clear debunking of living on light. If a veteran breatharian such as Jazz Muheen couldn't withstand week 1, how could anyone be expected to survive it? Jazz Muheen was maligned in the press. She was even awarded the Ig Nobel Prize, a parody of the Nobel Prize meant to satirize unscientific research.
Nice to
Other
resub Ghostly
recipients
and
include
legit.
Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard and fellow New Age guru Deepak Chopra for his liberal interpretation of quantum physics. But followers of Jazz Muheen's brand of breatharianism argued that by ending the experiment early, 60 Minutes had disproved nothing. The dehydration, the quickened heart rate,
Yeah, I agree.
normal
They should have just let it ride.
aspects
Whatever.
of a 21-day process. I see no reason why Jazz Muheen should not have passed the test, wrote filmmaker and breatharian advocate P.A. Straubinger. But it was stopped by the 60 Minutes team who wanted to prove their story. Jazz Muheen's momentum in the fringe
Here's the
spiritual
prime board.
movement was slowed but not halted. Her presence persisted well into the ensuing decades,
Thanks,
cited
Jack.
by many contemporary breatharians such as Navina Shine as being the authority on this way of life.
A very exciting thing happened for me yesterday. I managed to catch Jasmine before she went off on her tour. Jasmine lives in Australia, and she's kind of the guru, the authority on living on light.
I bet this lady dies.
She's been a breatharian for many years now, and so, you know, she lives breatharianism.
Although Jasmine knew the results of such experiments when taken too far, she had Skyped with Navina to offer her encouragement, even promoting Navina's YouTube channel from her own Facebook page. But despite the clear influence, Navina Shine's version of living on light was her own, one which thankfully did not require her to abstain from drinking water. In fact, by the end of the 3rd week of her experiment, the amount of water Navina was consuming was making her ill.
I've been having a bit of difficulty with drinking water. I just drink water and tea.
I wonder why. That's weird.
Let go of the coffee after
Doesn't make any sense.
Because it was upsetting my stomach. But the water seems to have been doing that. I realized that one of the things that was going on, I think I might have been drinking too much water, because I just kept drinking water.
Like Jasmine and other breatharians who came after, Navina could only offer an ambiguous explanation for what she intended to use as sustenance. Her use of the term light, she admitted, was a metaphor for an indescribable force.
We don't yet know if it's actually light, or if the nourishment is coming from the air, or the sun, or from somewhere else.
It's coming from the divine realm.
Exercising, reading, and attempting to master the mind-body connection she believed would allow her to access this form of supernatural nourishment, all without leaving her house for the duration of the experiment. She had originally intended to offer her spectators a 24-hour
Oh my god, she became a ghost.
Captured by cameras
it's rocking on its own.
Rooms of her home, a venture she disclosed put her in significant credit card debt.
You'll be able to see every moment of every day or night from anywhere in the world, just by tuning into the internet live stream, livingonlight.co, for as long or as little as you like.
What?
You just check in and see, is she eating, or is she not?
But Navina had overestimated her technical and financial ability to host a continuous live stream on her own website.
That's some OnlyFans shit.
She seemed reluctant to promise that it would ever operate as advertised. Naturally, this diminished her credibility, but based on her appearance as the weeks progressed, many speculated she was either not eating at all or eating very little. By day 21, Navina reported to have lost 21 pounds, averaging a pound per day since she'd started. Feeling this was sufficient, she instructed her weight to begin maintaining itself.
I've told my body that it's time to stop losing the weight now.
Oh, good.
That's a good idea. Taper it off and start stabilizing. And in my experience, the body usually does what you ask it to do, if you ask nicely.
Following Jasmuheen's public endorsement, Navina began attracting attention. When a local news team arrived at her home for a profile, Navina spoke with them optimistically about her experiment, although her physical state appeared questionable.
I'm actually feeling the need soon to sit down because I'm beginning to
shut down.
Yeah, I think I need to lie down. Okay,
yeah.
So, do you want to turn the cameras off for a minute?
Despite the technical setbacks with the live stream, she continued to film herself to create a record of evidence in the event she was successful.
Every individual on this planet would have sufficient evidence for them individually to say, yes, this happened.
Navina offered assurance that she was lucid enough to stop if she felt she was truly in danger of starving. When asked in an interview what she thought of the deaths of previous breatharians, Navina stated, "I don't know why they didn't notice they were dying, and I don't know why they didn't do anything about it."
That's some foreshadowing right there.
Navina acknowledged she was approaching the 8-week window where the prisoners in the Belfast hunger strikes began to pass away, and she intended to go at least 100 days, well beyond the point anyone had survived. Most of her audience continued to ask her to stop the experiment. Several commented that they would be reporting the channel for violating YouTube's guidelines regarding self-injury.
Well, that's actually pretty sweet of them. They cared.
That's coming in, now I've heard about it at least, where everybody seems to be afraid I'm going to kill myself, this is suicide and everybody going to come to my funeral. I don't think so.
But there was a small but ever-present band
of
fellow mystics.
Oh boy, they should all be accountable in some way.
Although Breatharianism is largely attributed to Jasmuheen, Ellen Grieve was only responsible for resurrecting it. Throughout the 1980s, the Breatharian movement was founded, popularized, and swiftly discredited by an enigmatic figure known as Wiley Brooks. Breatharian advocates such as Jasmuheen often claim that the movement has roots stretching back thousands of years, originating from the yogis of ancient India. But it's difficult to find usage of the term Breatharianism prior to 1972.
I don't even know how long it
In a
takes
book
to enter
titled
ketosis.
Dick Gregory's
I don't remember,
Natural
but it's not
Diet
that
for
long.
Folks Who Eat, civil and animal rights activist Dick Gregory wrote about a continuum of food consciousness, with showing no food restraint whatsoever on one end, restrictive diets such as vegetarianism somewhere in the middle, and breatharianism, eating nothing at all, at the other end. The Breatharian movement is not often attributed to Dick Gregory, due to his likely satirical use of the word, but the term, along with many of its modern principles, was later popularized by a smooth-spoken man from California. Wiley Brooks made his public debut in 1980
Couldn't go one day without a
TV
Coke.
show titled That's Incredible. Wiley, a
All right.
gangly man of 130 pounds, was showcased lifting nearly 10 times his body weight. His secret, he said, was that he hadn't eaten anything in 17 years.
You haven't eaten for 17 years. You have
What
not
a
had a
dumb
sandwich,
claim
hamburger,
to
hot
make.
dog, pretzel, a piece of roast beef, fish, vegetables, nothing for 17 years.
Right. Well, let me explain what breatharianism is first, if I might. Breatharianism
But you
is...
haven't eaten for 17 years
right,
as we know it.
Right.
Okay.
I don't eat... Yes.
As Wiley explained, he was once overweight, mindlessly consuming what he referred to as the typical American diet. In pursuit of slowing the aging process and becoming healthier, he stated he began moving through the food continuum, with regular fasting as advocated in Dick Gregory's book, until reaching breatharianism. Although Wiley did not invent the concept of
Thanks, Arisa
breatharianism, the
Dissonance.
specifics of the lifestyle, how to achieve it, and how to maintain it were left for Wiley to create. Wiley fleshed out the tenets of the movement during his 12-hour seminars, or what he called intensives, and to the 4,000 people who paid to watch him speak, Wiley's message was this: stop eating and start living.
All of the constituents that we need is taken from the air we breathe. And the fact is, there is only one thing that keeps the human body alive, and that is breathing.
Wiley's doctrine was solidified
Well,
and co-authored with fellow
yeah, I mean, you know.
Nancy Foss, which they titled Breatharianism, Breathe and Live Forever. With the tagline, The Healthy Diet for Eternal Beauty, the book attempted to intersect both the fad diet craze and the spiritualism craze of the 1980s, two booming movements which became notorious for preying on the gullible. When man reaches his perfect state of health and natural state of being, Chapter 1 begins, he will be in perfect harmony with his Creator and require no foods, water, or sleep. Those who read past
people
such a
are
first
fucking
sentence
dumb,
were
huh?
lectured about the poisons of food and how it was responsible for the negative effects of aging.
All of the things we've heard about, we must get old, and we must get weak. And I think I heard when I was a younger person that a man is twice a child and once a man. And that is not the case. When a person gets older and wiser, he should get younger.
But if achieving the lifestyle were as simple as not eating, it would have been a short book. So like the breatharian theologies that came after, Wiley detailed a transitional period. A full decade before Jasmuheen's infamous 21-day process, there was Wiley's Yellow Foods diet. 14 yellow foods, such as eggs, corn, and rum raisin ice cream from Haagen-Dazs, were meant to purify the blood of poison before one could mature into a breatharian.
Oh, you
Although
can't
Wiley
argue with
never
that.
fully explained the significance
Haagen-Dazs.
of the color yellow, he claimed it was based
Detoxifying
on its vibrational
superstar.
frequency, which was designed to cleanse and detoxify the body.
Before we even get started, our blood is poisoned. You see, we already start at a disadvantage when we're born.
Other lifestyle changes which were required to complete the transformation, such as never drinking water alone and only sleeping while facing north, also seemed to need no further explanation. Wiley's following was smaller than what Jasmine would cultivate in the 90s, but his brand of breatharianism managed to ensnare a young actress whose career was just blossoming. Michelle Pfeiffer had fallen in with a group of aspiring Hollywood breatharians in the early 80s.
I know her.
She later
Not
told
personally,
the
but I've seen her
Huffington
work.
Post, they were very controlling. I wasn't living with them, but I was there a lot, and they were always telling me I needed to come more. I had to pay for all the time I was there, so it was financially very draining. As she helped her husband, actor and director Peter Horton, research a role for a movie about a South Korean cult, she began to realize she was part of a cult herself. Wiley's movement had experienced a few years of unlikely success, but his time in the New Age limelight would be short-lived. Just 3 years after his debut, Wiley's secret habits would be exposed by
No
his
way!
followers, sending Breatharianism
He
into
eats?
a decade of humiliated silence.
I can't believe it.
First, you must kick the habit of eating. You see, we've done. Yes, that's right.
Wiley's growing organization had hinged on the promise that he hadn't eaten in 17 years, a claim he'd repeatedly made in interviews and lectures. But in 1983, with Breatharianism still in its infancy, Wiley was outed by a Breatharian member for, quote...
So the guy in the chat that keeps saying, look up Victor Truviano, legit didn't eat anything for 10 years. I'm just going to tell you right now, that's a lie. I don't know who that is. Typing in his name only brings up the Breatharian Wiki, and I can tell you right now, it's an absolute fucking lie. There is only one actual documented case of someone not eating for about a year, and it was an incredibly overweight man who, with the supervision of medical professionals, completely stopped eating for a year, living off of the latent storage in his body. He'd still drink and maintain like a liquid diet, but that is the only actual proven case of someone not eating for an extended period of time. I can tell you this Victor guy is eating, and you are being lied to. Also, he looks like Tommy Wiseau. And a little bit like Neil Breen, kind of like a fusion. Here, it's this guy. I don't know why you keep spamming that. He legit has eaten within the last 10 years.
Quote, sneaking junk food into his room after everyone was asleep. He'll eat a dozen donuts in a sitting, said former Breatharian Lavelle Leffler, who claimed to have first caught Wiley eating an omelet. When she didn't react, Leffler...
Oh, also, just in case anyone's curious, sorry to pause again. The guy I'm talking about is... 382 days. His name is Angus Barberi. His starting weight was... Where's his weight? This article doesn't have his starting weight. What the fuck? How the fuck are like, this is 3 different places that don't put his starting weight. Okay, he was extremely large. Like real big. But yeah, that is, to my understanding, the longest time without food. And proven without food. 456 pounds. Oh, okay.
Stated he began eating around her more often. Wiley's response to the allegations varied. To one newspaper, he said of Leffler, "We were romantically involved. We broke up, now she's out for revenge." To another, he claimed Leffler was upset over having recently been banned from the Breatharian institution after being caught stealing. But other members began coming forward, saying they witnessed Wiley emerging from a 7-Eleven.
Yeah, that's what I said. He still had liquids.
And later seeing
he just never had solid food for 382 days.
Modern constituents such as Jasmine Heen would
lost 270 pounds
him by speculating that the food was for someone else.
He was seen coming out of a 7-Eleven McDonald's because he was traveling with a group of people who eat.
But the damage to Wiley's reputation was irreparable. Despite assuring his followers that the movement did not depend on whether he, its founder, ate or not, Breatharianism suffered a critical blow. And when Breatharianism found its second wind nearly 15 years later, Wiley found he had no place in it. If you
he aged? How did he age?
But
he was breathing.
See me. Wiley said in a 2013 interview, "I don't get invited to places to talk."
Aww.
Although very little from Wiley's doctrines have endured the modern evolutions of Breatharianism, which mostly omit Wiley's promises of immortality, ability to go without sleep, and his yellow foods transitional period, there are components of his early teachings that have persisted throughout the decades.
Eating is an acquired habit just like drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes.
As epitomized in Wiley's
He's the prime
catchphrase,
stoned.
"Food is more addictive than heroin," the notion that human consciousness is meant to evolve beyond the need for food, and that eating is merely an addiction, with hunger being analogous to drug withdrawal, appears in many current versions of the movement. The unique power of the human mind to transcend its own biology and will itself to live without food has also been a foundational belief since the beginning.
We read that the hunger strikers in Belfast died.
Right.
You're living. What's
That's
the
right.
difference? What's the difference?
The difference is, very importantly, they wanted to die.
Similar assertions were stated in Navina Shine's videos. If her body began to shut down, she seemed to think that it wouldn't be the lack of food that would cause her to die, but the belief that she would die, categorizing the death as more of a self-fulfilling prophecy than a biological inevitability. And like Wiley's
How can
early
people even fall for
claims,
this?
she believed humanity's
Look no further than Twitter, man. You can see people buy into all kinds of dog shit all the time. All the time.
And when the umbilical cord is cut, it's terrifying for the baby.
But as Navina continued into the second month of her experiment, her enthusiasm was clearly waning. Her video diaries, once teeming with promises of changing the world, began to show struggles with self-doubt.
I have no idea if I'm living on light or not. I could be starving to death.
Name one thing. Astrology. Astrology is a fun thing to toy about, but it's not a real thing.
I would love it to be
But there's
true.
people that treat it like it is. Like, I will never date an Aquarius. Those fucking maniacs couldn't possibly date an Aquarius. Shit like that. But it's not real at all.
Keep our planet healthy. If it's not true,
But it's fun to play with. But some people adopted it as a true belief system.
Oh my god, how incredible is that?
Criticism remained the majority of Navina's audience response well into the 6th week of living on light, with much of it unsparing, but Navina had yet to be disillusioned.
I appreciate it.
When asked by a reporter for The Guardian what she thought of the medical consensus that her organs would fail if she continued, Navina replied, "A doctor can't see living on light because he looks through different lenses."
But people yet cannot see the possibility of living on light, because they are living in the paradigm of it can't be done, not possible.
A large portion of the criticism centered around Navina propagating a deadly idea, despite however altruistic her intentions might be. But many also suspected that Navina was likely
handcrafted chair.
eating, with living on light being an elaborate ploy for attention and donations, a justifiable speculation given the history of Breatharianism. This suspicion was inflamed when Navina admitted to introducing a daily vitamin C supplement. She was already under scrutiny for a morning tea, to which she added what she referred to as a splash of creamer. Navina contended that neither counted as food, but many told her she could no longer claim to be living on light, and therefore had compromised the experiment.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Huge consternation somewhere, but
I appreciate that, Stoned. Well, thank you.
Calories, so I'm just going to say, so what?
Although Navina appeared to remain positive, she occasionally cited the negative feedback as a possible message from the universe that she was on the wrong spiritual path. Navina was also struggling physically. Her body continued to cannibalize nearly a pound of adipose and muscle tissue per day, despite her pleas for it to stop. And by day 32, she claimed to have lost 35 pounds, experiencing frequent bouts of fatigue.
Maybe I don't feel
well
for
prime
a couple
roast,
of days.
resub
Maybe
prank.
I can, maybe I can't. There's no risk there. On the other side of that,
don't know what that is, Slayer.
Technology that can save the world. Save the world. Not feel very well.
People don't die from astrology. Oh, I didn't say it was nearly as bad as Breatharianism. He said, how do people fall for things? And I say people buy into things that don't make sense all the time and used astrology as an example. It's a totally fine thing to believe in and have fun with, but it's not a real thing. At all. And it doesn't try to be. But people took it as something like a real religion to follow.
A 55-year-old woman whose real name was withheld from news outlets starved to death in her home in Switzerland in 2011. Like the breatharian casualties of the past, this woman's death was a result of following Jasmuheen's 21-day process. But she had gone to even greater extremes than past victims, reportedly even spitting out her saliva during the no-water phase of week 1.
Ooh,
Although
boy.
her death is linked to living on light, reports suggest her inspiration for embarking on this venture were the claims of a modern-day Indian monk named Prahlad Jani. According to the lore surrounding Jani, who was 90 years old at the time of his death in May of 2020, he was blessed by 3 goddesses when he was 7 years old, who have been providing him with a steady drip of sustenance via a hole in the roof of his mouth ever since.
What?
Despite Prahlad Jani sharing little overlap with other prominent breatharian figures, with no assertions that he could teach anyone else to live without food or water, he's cited by many advocates as proof that the practice is possible. This is largely due to the so-called scientific studies that took place throughout the 2000s, and his portrayal in a 2010 documentary titled In the Beginning, There Was Light.
That's a cool title. That is like actually a great title, whoever came up with that.
Give a short encapsulation about what your film is about.
My film is about the strange phenomenon of breatharianism. I researched, is this true? What is true about it? But it's really, in the end, not about eating or not eating. It's really about understanding that we are more than these meat machines. Modern biology explains us that we are.
Although breatharianism never disappeared in the years following Wiley and Jasmuheen's prominence, the movement seemed to be lacking a public ambassador. But in 2010, a filmmaker named P.A. Strawbinger would release In the Beginning There Was Light, a controversial film which sold over 75,000 tickets during its run in Austrian cinemas,
not bad.
Despite being labeled problematic and anti-scientific by critics.
Western science just isn't dealing with this concept of life energy.
The film presents
that's weird. Why doesn't science study life energy? That's weird. It's like they've never watched Dragon Ball Z.
Of the medical community. Viewers are soon introduced to Michael Werner, a former chemistry teacher who claims to have stopped eating a decade prior after completing Jasmuheen's 21-day process. His relevance in the film centers around a 2004 study in which Werner voluntarily stayed in an intensive care unit for 10 days, consuming nothing but water and unsweetened tea observed by staff members of the University of Bern's Institute of Complementary Medicine.
He looks so scared.
The experiment, but like other breatharians who underwent similar studies, experienced physiological changes which contradicted his claims. Elevated levels of ketone production consistent with individuals who in a fasting state appeared in Werner's waist. Werner also lost nearly 6 pounds, a significant amount for dietary conditions he claimed mirrored his everyday life. Like Jasmuheen, Werner claimed the discrepancy was due to the poor air quality which prevented him from chronic feeding. He allegedly underwent a second experiment, but the film makes no mention of the outcome, only that the results are yet unpublished.
Wouldn't they just die?
But the bulk of the film centers around the studies of Prahlad Jani, whose assertions of not having taken any food or water for over 70 years surpass any other breatharian claim by a wide margin. Draped in robes and jewelry, surrounded by devotees, it seems almost blasphemous to doubt the claims of Prahlad Jani, who, the film references, was studied on 2 separate occasions in an attempt to, quote, understand this wonderful phenomenon. In 2003, Jani was observed for 10 days in what is described as a sealed room within India's Stirling Hospital. Oversight was provided by a team of doctors headed by the director of neuroscience, Dr. Sudhir Shah.
I appreciate that.
According
Thank
to
you,
the
Bills.
project's case summary, Jani was monitored in person as well as captured on CCTV camera during the experiment, in which Shah claimed Jani did not take any food or fluid, nor did he pass any solid or liquid waste.
Not eat anything.
Ah, that sounds reliable.
did not pass urine.
I guess 3 goddesses really are
They
providing
also
food
claim
to the roof of his mouth.
Via twice daily sonograms, urine collecting in his bladder, which, quote,
Surely they
decreased on
can't
its own
possibly be
without
lying.
We could see formation of urine in his bladder, which was reabsorbed from the bladder.
The integrity of the study was marred by many issues. Aside from brief moments of Johnny leaving the view of the CCTV camera, bathing was also allowed during the final days of the experiment. Strawbinger claims the doctors measured his bathwater before and after use, although nowhere in the case summary is this mentioned.
I have to wonder, of course, in my skeptical way, whether some water just might have accidentally splashed down the man's gullet while he was washing up.
Years later, a similar study, this time for 15 days, was conducted again by Dr. Sudhir Shah to similar results. Dr. Shah continued to be flummoxed by what he called Johnny's ability to generate urine in his bladder without drinking any water. In an interview, Strawbinger accused skeptics of the prolody to generate,
and at his will, he is able to recirculate it in his body. So he's a piss bender. This man can generate urine and move it around. Fuck yeah.
Urine in his bladder without drinking any water. In an interview, Strawbinger accused skeptics of the Prologani experiment of being ignorant. The video surveillance can be watched by anyone, he said, but no one bothers. That's where I get upset. When the interviewer asked if he had seen the footage himself, Strawbinger admitted to only watching clips. But most of the skepticism wasn't aimed at the footage, it was aimed at the doctors. As pointed out by Sanal Edamaruku of the Indian Rationalist Association, a group known for traveling around the country and debunking the supernatural claims of mystics and holy men.
And most of these people who are claiming that they are miracle men or holy men or saints are con men.
Dr. Sudhir Shah seemed suspiciously close with the Breatharian community.
What?
He'd also verified the claims of sun gazer Hira Matan Manek, who'd reportedly gone 411 days without eating under Dr. Shah's supervision years earlier. Manek would later be photographed sitting in front of a plate of food inside an Indian restaurant. And Strawbinger's reasoning that Manek is simply what's known as an eating breatharian did little to salvage his reputation.
So the exact opposite of what you're supposed to be for a breatharian.
Although Strawbinger argued on his website that his film takes a neutral view at what he calls the strange phenomenon of breatharianism, he became quick to argue with those who showed skepticism of the lifestyle, even defending disgraced breatharians such as Wiley Brooks and Jaz Muheen, revealing himself as one of the movement's foremost modern champions.
What a fucking loser.
By Strawbinger's own admission, the intention of his film was to evoke discussion. But those who know of breatharianism's tragic history are familiar with what happens when a non-critical portrayal of the subject is introduced to the public. When the death of the unnamed victim occurred a year after the film's release, news outlets attributed it to the documentary. Strawbinger was successful in avoiding repercussions as the attorney who investigated the death assured him that an adequate causality between the film and the death of this woman can be excluded. But as is often the case following
so what's he doing now?
To breatharianism, public scrutiny of the practice was renewed. The film was labeled as dangerous and manipulative. And with interest in the lifestyle renewed, Strawbinger's objective to bring breatharianism back into the public curiosity
Infinite piss generator. Yeah, it's true. That is true. He could do that.
I stand in the place of it's already done. I don't know. Maybe I'll catch up to that, and maybe I won't.
So what is Strawbinger doing that... Holy fuck, this is... How is there still so much left? Holy shit, how popular was breatharianism? Okay, let's see what he's doing. PA Strawbinger. This was the only thing he ever did. That's odd. This is actually the only thing he ever did. And he would tweet sometimes in 2018 only talking about surviving off of light. What a fucking weirdo. Alright, well, how can there possibly be this much more left? This movement was so fucking popular, I guess.
And there are a lot
Prime
of people
Pokeawesome
who
Resub Hannah,
genuinely are concerned for safety and genuinely don't think it's possible and believe it to be dangerous.
Hold on, I'm gonna take a little piss real quick. I don't have the same abilities of Prahlad Johnny. I can't just reabsorb piss and move it around and use it as projectiles or whatever. So let me pee and fill up my water. I'll be right back. Thanks to resub Tequila, Silver Spirit, and Dixie Normus. Congrats on the graduation.
All that feedback, I am really seeing that it is totally dangerous.
On June 16th, 44 days after she began, Navina announced she would be ending her attempt to live on light.
I am choosing to stop the experiment now, because even if it's true, it would be a mistake to put that out as if it's easy, as if it's real, as if it's anything.
On her website,
I was responsible.
She wrote, "From the feedback I am getting, it is becoming patently clear that most of the world is by no means ready to receive the information I am attempting to produce. Even if it were true that a person can live on light,
I mean, that's one way of looking at it, I guess.
I see now that it would be synonymous with giving a loaded shotgun to a baby." The feedback Navina mentioned, while a reference to the many discouraging comments she'd received, was also a reference to the fact that very few donated to her experiment, and after not having left her house in a month and a half, she would soon have to get back to work in order to afford her living expenses.
The money side of this is kind of irrelevant, because money is just an energy. So I'm looking to see what's going on behind that.
Luca.
Very, very clear. There's nothing like money to bring clarity into the situation.
For those who have been following Navina's video diaries, this news was no surprise. Navina had been voicing mixed feelings for weeks leading up to her announcement.
This is way, way too dangerous. People will look at one tiny little thing and think they've got the whole story, and then they will just go and do it and kill themselves. Who wants to do that?
Navina's video feed, which never aired but appeared to have been recording the entire time, was given a ceremonial shutdown. And the majority of Navina's audience congratulated her on the decision to bring Living on Light to an early conclusion.
And
they give the 2 gift subs, Loki.
Participation.
Well, that had a happy ending.
As of 2020, the Breatharian movement appears alive and well, perhaps even at the height of its popularity. A 10-day gathering in Italy called the Pranic World Festival has taken place annually since at least 2016. Pranic believers from all over the world gather to listen to celebrity Breatharian speakers such as Jazz Muheen and Kirby De Lonero, who gained notoriety in 2013 for preaching Breatharianism to a crowd of young people during a TEDx youth talk.
I ran a marathon for not eating for nearly 3 months.
Classic Ted.
Get a taste of the lifestyle without food, the Pranic World Festival invites. Although it's mentioned on their website that food will be provided at the event, with the disclaimer, we don't want to be obliged to call the ambulance. The connotation of the term Breatharianism has only worsened throughout the decades. Jazz Muheen is among those who have distanced herself from the word, preferring such synonyms as pranic living. But modern promoters such as Audra Bear and Ray Maor have both embraced the term, although when questioned about their lifestyle, admit to regularly consuming calories in the form of juice, smoothies, and broth.
Can't believe
their claims of not eating into semantic territory. But like all breatharians, they still claim to attain nourishment.
No, you should be fine, Colt.
As demonstrated in Audra's pranic breathing tutorial titled
just breathing, I see. Okay.
In 2013, Ray Maor even replicated Jazz Muheen's 60 Minutes experiment, despite Ray collapsing to dramatic music on day 4. Israeli television allowed the demonstration to continue for 8 days. Ray Maor stated that the goal was to prove breatharianism exists, but many commenters pointed out that going a week without food or water does not indicate that it's possible as a lifestyle. Nevertheless, there's no shortage of individuals claiming to have gone years without consuming a single calorie, solid or liquid, and are typically referred to as level 4 breatharians.
You know, they don't urinate. It means that they don't have number 2s and bowel movements.
Bizarre mythology surrounds these individuals.
Sounds good.
Or claims that while they don't drink, they are capable of absorbing the humidity in the air through their skin.
They actually their pores of their skin open up by breathing. They usually live in a place that is humid.
Indonesian level 4 Victor Truviano, who claims to have not eaten since 2007, is so revered that people line up to stare into his face for 30 seconds.
Okay. I hope you are still here. This is the guy that guy in chat kept spamming is real. Are you still here, the guy that kept saying that? Did you pay to stare in this man's face? God damn it, I hope you're still here. What the fuck was your name again? Son of a bitch. I shouldn't have looked it up. I shouldn't have looked it up preemptively. Atrocity Guide is the most thorough video essays of all time. I should have known that she would take this one. God damn it. I hope he's still here. Thanks to resub Rorik and Wolfgamer.
But arguably the most prominent of the modern gurus are a married couple named Akai and Camilla. Starting out as students of Breatharianism in 2008, claiming to have undergone Jasmuheen's 21-day process and haven't required food since. Akai and Camilla are currently spearheading the movement with their retreats, online consultations, books, and other materials. Their 8-day pranic living retreats are about as successful as any Breatharian instructor could hope to achieve, packing out secluded meeting locations around the globe, with attendants each paying upwards of $1,000. According to journalist Brina Kerr, who attended one of their retreats in 2017, their students undergo an abridged version of the 21-day process, where they are instructed to complete 3 days without food or water and only juice for the remainder of their stay.
72 hours drive fast, and in this day we are fully experiencing absolute prana, just living on air.
Like nearly
I just don't know who hears that. Hey, it's Edna. Edna Mode.
The participants' well-being.
I don't know who
Instead,
hears this shit and buys in.
A product called
like this one's even pushing it for like dumb people. It's crazy.
To measure one's vital force, energy, and chakra alignment. Akai apparently first encountered the BioWell in 2013, was impressed by his own readings, and began using it to evaluate his students' progress. Declarations on their website of their Breatharian method being, quote, scientifically proven, seem to be referring to their BioWell readings and nothing else. But where Akai and Camilla have become truly controversial is the subject of their children.
Oh God, Jesus Christ, no.
When Camilla alleged to have practiced Breatharian pregnancy.
I have lived 2 pregnancies now, also in this state. 4 times in my pregnancy with him, I ate something, and this was like in social settings.
I knew my son would be nourished enough by my love, and this would allow him to grow healthily in my womb.
Oh boy.
Despite assurances that their 2 kids are happy and healthy and are fed 3 meals a day, there's lingering concern for the well-being of the children, born and unborn, of Camilla's many devout followers. Akai and Camilla's mentor, Jasmuheen, is still regularly referenced as the authority on Breatharianism. Since her 60 Minutes appearance, an experience she cites as humbling.
The gift that 60 Minutes gave me was great humility.
She claims to eat roughly 300 calories per day, about 15% of the generally recommended daily intake. She continues to publish books on the subject of prana, but no longer advocates the 21-day process, instead recommending a lifestyle of 50% food, 50% pranic nourishment.
We can test our pranic nourishment percentage. It's easy to do. And if you're running a pranic nourishment percentage of 50%, that means you're getting it from your lifestyle.
How do we measure the prana?
Energy currents. Then you can immediately unhook from your dependence on the world's food resources by 50%. Right. So that's fantastic.
Wiley Brooks never fully recovered from being exposed. Although rather than continue to deny his penchant for fast food, his strategy in recent years has been to write it into his doctrine. According to his website, the gateway to the lifestyle now includes the type of food he was caught eating decades ago. Don't eat anything but the McDonald's double quarter pounder with cheese and a Diet Coke, Wiley warns. No water of any kind, no fruits or vegetables of any kind. McDonald's restaurants are living, breathing, vibrating consciousness buildings of love, abundance.
That's probably the exact opposite of love, I'll tell you what.
When you walk into McDonald's, just know you are in a vortex of unconditional love.
That's what a powerful breatharian wants to get in the fifth dimension.
Not,
Eats
well,
double
if you,
quarter pounder
if you
with
get
cheese, French
in the
fries.
fifth dimension through me, you will have to take that.
Like Wiley's Yellow Foods diet, reasoning behind this food choice is apparently too
I feel so bad for that guy.
But there seem to be
He lived his
only
whole
about 5
life a
members
fucking
currently in his
liar.
organization. And
It can't be
operations are
easy.
likely slow going, as it's doubtful any are attending his $1 million workshops or ordering his $10,000 immortality drink. Prala Johnny continued to face scrutiny for his claims until his death at the age of 90.
What's in the
Thanks
fridge?
for your sub, wildebeest.
Okay.
Yes. What's inside? Can I see?
Inside, no. He in the only water to wash the mouth.
Ah.
And the
Independent observers
Okay.
such as Edu Maraku and James Randi, who had asked to sit in on his observation studies, were denied, leaving Dr. Sudhir Shah's questionable experiments the sole testimony of his claims.
I can't believe it.
Similar to Jasmuheen, P.A. Straubinger also received a parody award for his contribution to Breatharianism, a German prize called the Golden Blockhead for the category of Most Astonishing Pseudoscientific Nuisance. He continues to promote his film and public speaking events, where he's quick to acknowledge the dangers.
He does look like a guy that would just be
while also rejecting personal
laughed at.
responsibility for giving credence to it.
Fucking
My film,
loser.
of course, is not dangerous at all. It's just doing
Tries to
research
make a
because I said
documentary to
from
get
the
people
beginning,
killed.
Please don't try this out. Just because you see a film about somebody climbing the Mount Everest, it doesn't mean you should do it the next day in sneakers and shorts. So this can be, of course, very dangerous.
Navina's online presence seems to have disappeared following the end of Living on Light.
Thanks
In
for
her
Prime's
final video, she
Swahili
alluded to
Prince.
starting a new channel called Shining a Light, dedicated to other esoteric ideas, although no such channel matching that description seems to exist. She returned to her channel a month later to check in with a portion of her audience who was worried about her.
I'm doing really well. I just wanted to update you for those who were concerned that I was not doing so well towards the end of it. I'm eating. I think on July 4th was the first day I had a normal meal, which was quite delicious.
She wasn't comfortable conceding that Breatharianism wasn't possible, but admitted that she would never be the one to prove it. As it stands, Navina Shine's channel isn't the testament of our ability to live without food as she originally intended, nor did it succeed in saving humanity from self-destruction. Instead, living
Is
on
this
life
just
chronicles
adult
something rare for
bulimia? You don't know what bulimia is,
in a
man.
movement
That's
so
when you
often
puke
filled
after
with
eating.
Deception, injury, and death.
This is
Navina Shine
scams.
provided a much-needed
Very
example
dangerous
of
scams.
the awareness of danger and irresponsibility before following such an idea to its tragic conclusion.
The universe is saying, this is what I want because this is what's occurring. I have no argument with that.
That was a great video. I had no idea Breatharianism was as popular as it is. I had no clue.